There we
There
go.
you go.
We'll record to the cloud and I'll figure it out later.
There you go.
So, welcome to the Scotchy Bourbon Boys YouTube exclusive. We have Matt Jackson, master distiller of the Preservation Distillery in Bardstown, Kentucky. And I am Tiny, and this here's Xavier.
Greetings, everyone.
We've just been doing a little pre-chatting about a lot of stuff, what's been going on. But it's great to have Matt here tonight. We're excited. We were down there last September, and we stopped by for a tour, and Matt gave us a really good, private,
Awesome tour.
back stage access to the distillery, and we just really appreciated it when we were down there. Welcome.
No, glad to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
You use the term master distiller. So I'm not actually a master distiller yet. So
Okay.
that's a title given to you by your peers. I haven't earned that yet. Of course, I probably never will. I always want to keep learning. So I'm head distiller is the term.
Perfect.
All right.
And I get that a lot from the head distillers, because there is a respect in the distilling industry. Now, some people will accept it, but they still are uncomfortable with that title, because the head distiller means you're in charge and you're running things and you kind of dictate who's doing what. But overall, as in any distillery, large or small, it's all about the team, right?
Sure, absolutely. And you constantly want to keep learning. I try to follow a lot of the other guys in town at some of the larger distilleries, that just try to soak up as much knowledge from those guys as I can.
Yeah, definitely. You guys, that was really cool. The Bardstown collection, the five. I know Randy Prossi, the president of the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, and you got to hang out with him that night. With the night when everybody was there. But talk about that experience a little bit. That just seemed cool as hell. You were with all the distillers from Bardstown.
Absolutely. That was a ton of fun. And that, like you said, Randy and the Chamber of Commerce and the Kentucky Bourbon Festival, or Bardstown Bourbon Festival, they put that event on, just trying to showcase all the distilleries working together, and what it means for Bardstown as a community, to how well they accept all the distilleries there, and just to showcase, they tried to showcase Bardstown in a nutshell the best they could, and they hit the nail right on the head, man. And we worked. There were 5 distilleries on that project. It was Heaven Hill, Connor O'Driscoll at Heaven Hill, Steve Nally at Bardstown Bourbon Company, Freddie Noe at Jim Beam, Landant at Log Still Distillery, and myself at Preservation. And they asked us to kind of put together something really special. It was, just a one-time deal. And, it was just a ton of fun working on that stuff, man, and working with all the other distilleries and getting together with those guys and just learning from them. And, we had a really good time that night after the releases, and, talking with those other guys, man. Everybody done really well. Had a ton of people come in to buy those bottles. So, it was just showing everybody that all the distilleries are there to work together for the betterment of Nelson County and Bardstown in particular. So.
Yeah, it just had, it just looked like Randy first sent me a picture. He was with Connor O'Driscoll and Freddie in a picture, and he's like, "Look where I am," and I'm like, "Yeah, you what the hell?"
Yeah, for sure. I definitely felt like the newbie in the room with those guys. Just read a little bit about Steve Nally and what that guy's done, and and then you go read about Connor O'Driscoll from Heaven Hill, and Freddie being in the industry for generations and generations, and and then you don't know what to expect from these guys, but then you sit down and you talk with them, man, and these guys are just the most down to earth, just can sit and talk just like we're doing now. They're just great people, man, just good people.
Yeah, what that just I think that night is going to be historical because that night you brought 5 Bardstown Distillery
I agree.
together with all the same people in the room, and they are all talking, and it was just a super night. But it
Sure.
also just the aspect of what your sentiments were exactly about that night is the same with me when I go and I talk to you and I go to Jim Beam and I talk to Freddie and then I go, all the different and Lynn Dant from Logstill and talking to them, you really, when you go in there, I as a podcaster understand the history of what you guys are laying down, in
Sure.
100 years, you're going to be like, it's going to be part of history. There's no way out of it. That's what they record. It's Kentucky. It's being recorded. All the little distilleries and all those little distinct distilleries that they keep bringing back, they all have history,
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
it's really cool to be a part of that because what's what most people would like to do when they're on the planet? Because you're only here for a short period of time. You'd like to leave something that the world in the future remembers you, not just a gravestone or
everybody wants to leave a legacy of some type, and right now in the time with the bourbon boom going the way it is, it makes it even funner and even cooler being able to work, closely with these guys, and share not just a business relationship with them, but a friendly relationship as well. And it's just seeing these guys open up, man, and share their knowledge with you is just, to me, that's the ultimate symbol of friendship and trust and just love for your neighbor and community. And it's, they all these guys, they want to see all these distilleries do well, and that project that we worked on, man, was something special because it, you can be in there and tasting those other guys' products. You know how much work and how important it was for them to put the best product that they could out, and ourselves included. We really wanted something to leave an impression on people.
Yeah, that sounds and it sounded like a lot of fun what everybody had done, but
You have no idea.
It also probably gave everybody those really, really good barrels that you don't know what to do with. It gave you something, it gave you ability to make something that with those barrels that you really were like, it's too sweet or it's too much this, and you can do that to put together something cool. I mean, I've talked to Freddie before, and that's one of that's, when you're producing mass amounts of
Right.
liquor that has to taste the same, and you get these barrels that are just off the chart.
Sure.
And if you're going to dump it in there, it's just going to throw everything off. So then it's like, what do you do?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
that was it. Like you hit the nail on the head there also, man. Seeing these guys that are used to blending, several hundreds or several thousand barrels together, for them to be able to take the time and go in and just pick 2 barrels that they thought would be the best for that one particular label. And, it was really neat seeing some of that quality product come out of some of those distilleries, and watching and seeing what they have to offer. It's exciting, man. It was a good time. It was fun.
Well, yeah,
Sounds like it.
Yeah, it sounded like it was just, a blast. So, all right. Well, I think that's a really good extra on YouTube. So what we want to do is get started right here. This part that I'm about to do, it's 30 seconds, and then we'll go into our intro, and we'll be ready to start the regular podcast. All right.
Sounds good.
Here we go.
The Watershed Story. A watershed moment might be pivotal, but it might also be quiet and fleeting. It could be a monumentous occasion, a cause for celebration, an enormous triumph, or a small daily victory. A watershed moment could be a rekindling or an observation or a gathering. Any opportunity to relish with friends and family. It's whatever you choose to cheers to, who you're gathered around, and whatever's worth celebrating. We founded Watershed Distillery on the principles of community in 2010. We wanted to live in, work in, and contribute to the community in which we grew up. We aimed to create spirits and stood apart in quality and character. Along the way, we set out to form a community of our own, one that could gather together to savor, celebrate, and enjoy good spirits and company. We've grown from a tiny little still and 2 guys in jumpsuits to a dedicated team of over 40 people and 2 much larger stills. If you're ever in the area, stop by so we can introduce you to our team and pour you some of our award-winning bourbon. Creating it was our watershed moment, but we want to hear about yours.
Spirits of French Lick is proud to introduce the Maddie Gladden Bottled and Bond Bourbon. This 4-year aged bourbon is double pot distilled and non-chill filtered and has a full-bodied mouthfeel with eucalyptus, molasses, clove, ginger, and slight citrus as well as grains of paradise. The finish is long and reappearing on the back of the tongue with notes of pepper, tobacco leaf, and mint cream. All of our spirits are available for tasting and purchase inside the French Lick Winery and Distillery. Spirits of French Lick. Respect the grain, please enjoy responsibly, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
Oh, show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. Show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. For if we don't find the next whiskey bar, I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die. I tell you, I tell you, I tell you we must die.
Woo! We're back for another exciting podcast of the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. And tonight we have a really good podcast set up and a great guest. We have Matt Jackson of the Preservation Distillery.
All right.
Head distiller. Welcome, Matt.
Glad to be here.
Great to have you here.
Sure
I'm
is.
Tiny. This here's Xavier. We're back at it for another awesome podcast here tonight. I remember everybody, www.scotchybourbonboys.com. Check out our website. We are on all major podcasting formats. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Patreon. So check us out on those formats. But just remember, whatever you listen or watch us on YouTube too, which we're on, make sure that you like, subscribe, and leave good feedback. So got that out of the way.
All right.
Sometimes I'm better at it than others, right?
You're killing it tonight, that's for sure.
So we've been, we did a little bit of the YouTube upfront stuff, but we don't have any whiskey in our glasses. And
I wondered what was wrong there. It was like this is a sense of something missing. You know?
your 3 whiskeys, but what you drinking tonight, Matt?
Actually, right now I'm on. This is a really good bottle of some Four Roses single barrel.
Ooh. Which one? The 2021 limited edition?
I'm not sure. I'd have to go. I'm sure I'll get the bottle out in a few minutes and I'll take it out.
All right. Well, what we're going to start with this, which is autographed by you.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I really, when I first came out to the distillery the first time, we had come down and I was picking up a barrel shelf and we kind of stopped in. You weren't there, but we did you're the woman in the, that heads up the tastings, the older woman. We kind of got there at the end and, there was you had to have, it was, last year there was all the COVID restrictions and everything.
Right.
But me and my wife stopped in and she's like, well, you don't have to have a reservation or whatever to taste, and so she's like, do you really want to taste this? She poured me the Rare Perfection 14 years. So maybe talk a little bit about exactly how this particular bottle and all works with the Preservation Distillery.
So the namesake behind Rare Perfection is it's not it's not one specific brand of spirit. It's not, you know, particularly a bourbon. It's not particularly a rye whiskey. It's what they done, what Marcy's idea behind that, which is the owner of Preservation. It's to go find these really, really just, you know, phenomenal barrels of whatever she can get, you know, and she'll taste through how many ever barrels of whatever spirit it is. And you know, she offers it to a few other people too. And if they decide on it to be be worthy for the Rare Perfection label, that's what they'll bottle it as. So that is the 14 and 15 that we have now is it's actually a Canadian whiskey, but it's not your typical Canadian whiskey. You know, most of your Canadian whiskeys are, you know, it's a one particular mash bill of either rye or corn or whatever their grain is. It's distilled separately, you know, and then blended together. But that was more of a traditional mash bill of mixture of grains, you know. So it just didn't fit the profile of what Canadian whiskey typically goes by. But when you taste it, it's, you know, it's something all on its own. There's no other distilled spirit out there that resembles that. I mean, it's nothing, you know, it's not reminiscent of anything that you can pick up, you know. So, you know, the most interesting thing about the Rare Perfection to me is, of course, I'm more partial to the 15 year, the Rare Perfection 15, which is I think it's the overproof release that we did. It's 119.7, I believe. You know, as you drink it, every sip that you take, it tastes different, you know. And by the time that by the time your brain is picking out a flavor, it's too late. It's already going to something different. So you just keep going back to it, and it's, you know, it's not something that you can describe to somebody. It's one of these ones that you're like, man, you have to taste it. Here, just try it. So it's very rich. It's very full bodied, you know. So it's a pretty interesting pour.
Yeah, and I found that what I found is on the 14. I did taste the 15, and the 15 is more, what'd you say, classic whiskey, where it's got more of a kick, like it just has a little bit more that way. But one of the reasons why I love bourbon and a lot of whiskeys is I've always been a vanilla caramel guy, not a big chocolate guy, even though some whiskeys you can get chocolate. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Sure.
What I've always loved is like caramel sundaes, but you know, that was what I grew up with. And when you start pulling those flavors those butterscotches, you know, and all that out, that's what I love about especially bourbon, you know, that big flavor of sweetness. So I do enjoy a sweet bourbon, but I also can enjoy exactly what you're talking about. It's good if it's got to have a kick. I understand why some people don't like a lower proof, and because there's not, to them, they love those high proofs, or they love the rye, the ones that are where the rye is expressing itself, where it like ignites their taste buds, or that it just gives them that feeling of whiskey, because there's a certain, you know, what would you say, brand to, or you know, aspect of whiskey where some people just like that kick. Sure. And then when you make a whiskey that the kick's not there, somehow, even though that's probably about 80 to 90% of the rest of the world that drinks whiskey, they don't want the kick.
Yeah.
But somehow those people are like, oh, that's just crap. And I'm just like, but I understand all the different aspects of who drinks whiskeys, you know, and you have to have them all, right?
Right.
This has enough proof, enough kick, but that pure caramel kind of butterscotch that happens
definitely
mid-late palate, you know?
Yeah.
Almost actually when I drink it, it almost goes to the right of my tongue down my throat, but it's just so right there, and it's what I love, and that's what I love about it.
And it doesn't die out mid palate and on back to finish. I mean, it's just carries those flavors through, and you don't get any hint of bitterness. It's just
No, it lingers for a while, and even with the vanilla and the caramel and even the oaky, but you get some of that dried fruit on the back of it, and that's what keeps it lingering around, and it's got all those tasting notes that you would expect from a bourbon, but it doesn't taste like a bourbon. Does that it doesn't make sense, but it does.
there's a little bit of this there, but it doesn't taste like you've been gnawing on a popsicle stick.
When you say
what I mean, you don't get overpowered by the
Right.
It's more like a apricot, or almost like even almost just, I'm not saying it in a bad way, but a prune.
No, absolutely. When we were tasting it the first time, it's like a really rich marzipan taste. Almond. It's got that almond, that floral almond note with those dried fruits. It's just really reminiscent of it's got all the tasting notes of a bourbon like you'd expect, but it doesn't taste like a bourbon. I know that sounds like a contradiction, but until you try it, you don't. It's one of those things that you just have to try to understand it.
If you remember now, so just get in. How many barrels was this batch, and did you help out with the blending at the distillery? Is that where you put all the barrels together?
No, that all that stuff is done in our warehouse, and there were a few lots that I tasted on and put my opinion in, but most of that's done by Wes and Marcy and Scott Nelson, Wes Robertson, and Marcy Palatella, our owners. So each lot was it's 3 barrels or less, because that's how big our blending tanks are. So. Okay. They'll taste through, maybe 7 or 8, 10 barrels, and they'll pick out the 3 that they think go together the most, and they'll blend those together.
Well, and then the one thing I asked you about this, because, there's Canadian whiskey in it. And one of the rules in Canadian whiskey, you can add color and a certain percentage of flavoring. And I asked you that, but you straight ahead did exactly what you just did now. Nope, it's not. It's not.
No, there's no artificial coloring. There's nothing artificial in that. If it, but if it is, it has to be stated on the label.
True. That is true. But like I know that, that's one of the things that, you can do in Canada, but
right.
Most Canadian whiskey, they're not doing that. They're playing by, the caramel coloring. Sure. I mean,
most reputable Canadian places aren't. Yeah. But those all came in, we received those still in barrels. They didn't come in tanks. Those came in barrels.
All right. Well, that's some wonderful whiskey. There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
I have one of these autographed bottles, Matt, and it's empty, just so you know.
Well, we can probably fix you up with some more. So.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. My wife and I cracked that. We kind of held off till I think it was around Thanksgiving. We were going to save it for the holidays.
So I was better. Seriously, I cracked that with you. You waited for me to get better.
Yeah.
He's like, we got to crack that. And I'm like, I actually have to want to taste it, because I know what that's supposed to taste like, and the one thing that, like we were talking, the one thing when I lost my taste, I could taste a certain amount of sweet and whatever, but overall, most whiskey that, unless it was flavored with like caramel, a caramel flavored, it all tasted like rubbing alcohol. That's the part. And then I knew
you couldn't discern any taste.
And then it burned the crap out of my throat.
Yeah.
It's just
I'll tell you what, once we did pop that cork, it didn't last long.
Oh,
just so you know.
Yeah.
Well, no, and like we were saying earlier, that one of the best things about that is, a pour of that stuff will last you. I mean, because as you sip on it, it just gets better and better. It's like it never stops, and a small couple ounce pour can last you quite a while on that. That's one of the most interesting things about that particular release that I think that I enjoyed the most.
The way it fills your mouth, I'm going to liken this to something people are going to think I'm out of my mind.
He is.
That's beside the point. But I can remember something, and now don't think of this in the context of an adult. Think of this in the context of a child. When we were little, if we had a sore throat, my parents would give us just like about that much in a shot glass of some old Mr. Boston Rock and Rye whiskey. And to a child, I have no idea. It's been, that would have been when I was like 4, maybe, and I'm 61 now. It's probably been that long since I had any. But this likens to me when it was like I discovered at an early age that, wow, this stuff's okay. Whiskey in general, how that, like you say, fills your mouth and just stayed with you forever. And to that extent that you were saying, this does that for me, only as an adult on a much different scale.
Yeah, it's like a new experience every time. You know?
Yeah, it is. It's like you have the same feeling of wonder and amazement as I did as a child when I would sip on that when I had a sore throat.
Sure.
So
Well, again, I had never tasted a distilled spirit that by the time you're able to pick out one certain flavor you think you're automatically going to something different already because you're tasting something different.
Oh, yeah,
it's the depth of it is incredible. So,
yeah, you're hitting a moving target. It's
absolutely, yeah.
It's pretty delicious.
So just like that aspect of the distillery. Now you have the Old Saint Nick line. Now, is that still the blending? That's still the blending aspect of them of Marcy and her husband. What? Okay.
So Marcy Palatella, then you've got Scott Nelson, which is our, I think, vice president. He's in charge of all of our sales and distribution. And then Wes Robertson is our warehouse manager.
Okay.
Was Marcy the lady?
Yes, we met Marcy.
Yeah, we met Marcy.
Yeah,
Very nice lady.
After I fell out the bus.
Yeah. Super nice.
You didn't fall out of the bus there.
Yeah, at Preservation. I ran out because
I
was
thought
so
that
excited.
was that was a Limestone Branch.
No, Limestone Branch doesn't have a gravel parking lot. I remember that.
I just remember Jeff falling out of the bus. Tiny fall.
It wasn't falling out. I dove out because I was trying to go meet Matt, and I had to get out there first.
Matt, like just think of us like a bunch of kids waiting to get off the bus, and we're all looking out the bus windows. People are getting off. All of a sudden, you see Jeff going down the steps. The next thing you see is wham! It's like he swan dove out of the bus, and everybody was like, oh my God, it's like it just took our breath away. And then we could see that he was okay. He holds up his phone. I didn't hurt my phone. And then we just started laughing our butts off at it. I mean, it's like, okay, you're all right. Now we're going to laugh at you.
I was all right. I mean, for falling out the bus and diving onto a gravel, that gravel parking lot, that was pretty good.
It's a new Olympic event, bus diving.
So there's that aspect of the distillery that they're going out and purchasing and finding good sourced whiskey and producing these brands, right? The Ryes, the Old St. Nicholas. We have 2 bourbons here. We got the 12 and the 13 year because I'm a bourbon fan. So we're going to be doing
Sure.
I've never tasted it before. This is courtesy of Super Nash, Martin Nash. You got to meet him when he was with us before.
Sure.
He's able to obtain a lot of bottles and then just send us the samples. So tonight we're going to be doing the 12 and 13.
Well, so a lot of the very old Saint Nick. So Marcy, she was in the distribution business for years, and her husband was as well. So that's how they established a lot of these relationships with a lot of the distilleries, and that's what kind of started their passion with bourbon. So the Old Saint Nick was a brand that she developed in 85 or 86. So a lot of this product was stuff that she had previously bought and owned and already had, so it wasn't stuff that she just picked up on a whim. This is stuff that came from distilleries that she had worked with for a lot of several years. So one of her strong suits is the blending. He's really good at being able to pick really good quality barrels.
So you're telling me for 80, 90, 2000, so for like 30 years, she's been collecting barrels.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
she purchased a warehouse, and then as she was working, she was just collecting barrels.
You know, between you and I don't know how many warehouses she owns in California. You know, so
Do they do wine too in California, or is it just whiskey?
you know, I'm not 100%. I'm not 100% on that. I'm 99% positive that they're in the wine industry as well. But I do, you know, of course they're in the distribution business, you know, so they've got these warehouses anyhow, you know.
Well, that's really unique. I need to talk to her because I met a guy who's a descendant of the people who came over on the Mayflower. His grandfather, great by 15, was actually the first governor of Massachusetts, and they brought the still over there. Okay, and now he's in California, but he's been watching over their stock of the barrel that he wants to release this year is 145 years old. It's been being stored in caves.
How is there any of it left?
Because when it's 55 degrees year round, it's not going in and out of the barrel. It's just staying.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of evaporation and whatnot. Now, if there's some problems with the barrels, they basically will switch it out. You know,
sure.
But they do it using their own oak barrels that they make on property. It's so good. But I should hook Marcy with him because he's in Northern California, and he's looking to see what, you know, he's working with a bunch of people, but he's not, what would you say? The business has been kind of not kind to him at the moment. You know,
right, I got you.
Stills and everything, and he keeps replacing what's in the caves, but at the same time, he wants to take it to the general public.
Sure.
Might be something, you know, he was asking me about that, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so with the very old St. Nick, you know, that wasn't a big product in the States. You know, that was mostly something that was distributed overseas in the Asian markets. That product it has a huge cult following over there still to this day.
It's all there in the Asian market.
It's still the very old St. Nick label. It just wasn't something that was released here in the States a lot when it first was started.
Well, I see it being big in Europe. We were talking about very old St. Nick is Santa Claus. How big is Santa Claus in the Asian market? At
one point it was bigger than Maker's Mark over there. So,
well, there you go. And there's a lot of people in the Asian markets, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad now it's part of our market.
Sure. Yes, Me too.
So what you're about to see is me for the first time ever drinking this. This has been on my shelf probably since November because I knew I wanted to drink it with you when you came on. So we've got.
Is that the 12 or the 13?
This is the 12, and then we have the 13 also right here. So we're going to do both. So what do you like personally?
Between those two, probably the 12. Yeah, I would say the 12 is. I don't know, man. That's you're splitting hairs now, though. You know, those are both exceptional products right there. So
that is exceptional. That's a big front palate, but then the roof of your mouth starts retaining all the sweetness, and then on the finish, it's like, holy crap, that's like so exactly what I love in bourbons.
Yeah, that's got everything that you look for in a Kentucky bourbon. I mean, it's you know, textbook. You got all that nice caramel and the oakiness and the richness, and you know, it's got everything that you would expect from a Kentucky bourbon, but it's you know, it's like that times 10. You know.
Yeah.
The reason I like the 12 over the 13 is you can, for whatever reason, you can pick out every one of those flavors. As it rolls across your tongue, you can pick every flavor out. But then it's like when it gets to the back of your tongue, it's all, I don't, it's like it's layered. So it's layered very, very pleasantly, and
Oh, caramel. I like the sweetest raisin on the front.
the vanilla. Yeah. It's something with that. And like raisin, and I said earlier, dried fruit, but there's a certain flavor profile that you get from, dried apricots, dried raisins, any dried fruit, that it's a certain type of sweet that you only get from dried fruit.
Right.
But
now there's something. Go ahead.
No, there's more depth and more complexity to that sweetness.
The cherry, the stone dried fruits.
Yeah,
those
absolutely.
don't have as much depth. So you get that cherry, and it's almost like you really, when you're getting that amount of cherry, sometimes it's like if you get too much cherry, it's like going towards cough syrup. You know what I mean?
Overpowering, yeah.
But when you're dealing with the apricots and the that little bit of raisin, and you're dealing with that type of thing, that is a way different flavor. Those are the two different dried fruits that are there. And,
well said.
This is it's like a caramel pudding, like a bread pudding with raisins on it.
No, it's let's stick with the dried fruit theme. I think when it first starts to hit you mid palate,
kind of like dried fig
or banana. I'm getting like some banana, and then it goes into more of an apricot or cherry, like he says, as it works its way back. And it's really, really interesting expression.
It's the same thing as what with Rare Perfection. Every time you get a little bit different something else.
Absolutely, yeah. But the way it all layers together, though, on the back, and how it lingers around, is really pleasant. It's really pleasant.
It's got a very pleasant finish to it, and certainly a nice hug. It's really
it must be special working there, because when you're talking about this aspect, it's like we just talked about Old Carter, and you're talking about Mark and Sherry Carter. They're doing similar stuff. They've got that going, but you guys then are it's got to be fun distilling for them, knowing that what you guys are going to do with that once your stuff is really starting, everything you're putting is coming to age, and how when you have people with really good palates, that's the key to putting out really good whiskey. Understanding how what people are looking for, and what you taste, and what you don't, and how to blend. As when you're blending some of your own stuff, if you take a barrel and two barrels and you mix them together, one barrel tasted like this, another barrel tasted like that, and then you put it together, and there's stuff in it that wasn't in either barrel, which is like phenomenal to me. That what kind of, but then as you do this more and more, you get a feel for what the flavor profiles and everything that's going on, right?
Well, absolutely, and we all take a lot of pride working there, and it's just it's something. It's fun to do, but we're trying to stick with the tradition of bourbon. We're very, very proud of the tradition of bourbon and what it has done for Kentucky, and we're just trying to make people proud is the best way to put it.
Well, I agree with what you're saying, because now but I agree with what you're saying. You're a craft distiller right now in Kentucky, right? You're not producing. The distillery is of craft distilleries. So there's a lot of, as a craft distiller, you have a lot of control of the day-to-day operations. There's a lot of stuff that you're doing that some people do at a mass level that you're doing when you do it in a smaller scale, and the control that you have a little bit more control, so you can make sure that distillate is coming out tasting as good. You're always looking to improve and make it better, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Opposed to a big distiller in Kentucky who's not looking to improve and make it better all the time. they're looking to keep it consistent. And as we all know, this is not for the everyday drink a bottle bourbon guy. You know what I mean? It's like
that's a special occasion bottle.
Yes.
You know, but you just hit on it. You know, bourbon is not. I don't mean to step on any toes or anything here. This is my opinion. So bourbon is meant to taste different. Every bottle is meant to taste different. And we talked about this when you guys were out. You know, there's so many moving parts to bourbon. You know, just like a barrel. You know, there's anywhere from 5 trees to 50 trees in one barrel. Every one of those trees came from a different part of the state. You know, they all have their own flavor profile. You know, the grains that go into making the bourbon, you know, they grew in different parts of the field. They have their own flavor profile. You know, there's every single bottle of bourbon is not meant to taste the same. It's supposed to be different. And, you know, I understand all these guys working so hard to be consistent with things, but why not showcase how unique bourbon is? You know, the only flavor profile that we're going for is great. As long as it's excellent and great, that's what we're looking for.
Well,
right.
What is our flavor profile? It's great.
Yeah.
Well, but so I deal with a lot of what I like to say is whiskey snobs. And what I don't like about somebody is when somebody likes something in a small batch, like someone says something about Basil Hayden toast. I don't mind Basil Hayden toast. It's okay. I would have liked it to have been better, but it's not something that I'm going to not drink if it's in. My wife likes it. She loves it. She loves high protein, whatever, but she likes but when you're trying to make something consistent for put it this way, forever, the key to it was it was hard to make something consistent. So master distillers were always trying to see if they could make what they could do to make it consistent. And then probably in about the 50s and 60s, they started figuring out how to do it. Then they started analyzing molecular composition as we went into the 70s and 80s. I mean, so when Jim Beam puts Jim Beam in the bottle, it's Jim Beam. Jack Daniels puts Jack Daniels in the bottle. Now that's for the most of the whiskey drinking population drinks those two bourbons. I mean, those two sell more than all the small batches put together easily just with those two brands. And so, but the people where the whiskey has been this is the boom right here where we're like experiencing it. It's not because they're probably selling the same amount of Jack Daniels and Jim Beam. It's the people like us and what you're doing who just start to understand that you can get so many different flavors. And as a distiller, you have so much different control that as you keep going, if you just keep pulling all these different flavors, and as you know, if you start to research history, entry level into the barrel, that makes a difference. The yeast, how much it's yielding. I mean, yeast
the malt you're using
that you can the temperature that you ferment at, the temperature that you run your stills at, all that stuff comes into play.
Right. So, and it's just like some people want the most production of alcohol out of that yeast. And but if you have the yeast not completely fully productive and they're doing a little bit of something else because there's something in there because you're changing the temperature, it still can add different flavors. And everybody, that's just full production isn't always just what you want or the yeast you're getting.
I'm not saying, I'm not saying that we come in every day willy-nilly changing everything up. Of course we're keeping everything consistent, but so I liken it to, that's why I'm such a huge single barrel fan. Each barrel tastes different, so our cook process, all that stuff is the same. We're as consistent as any other distillery, but we want to showcase how different and how unique bourbon truly is, with showing people that every bottle can taste different, but they're all great in their own uniqueness, so And that's one of the best things about being a craft distillery the size we are is, we can use different types of barrels. We can switch our mash bills up a little bit for the type of the time of year it is. We can, it gives us a little bit more freedom to do the things that we feel that is the best for the product that we're manufacturing.
100%. Now, let's go over what you're distilling now. When did Preservation start distilling? When you guys opened and you were distilling, what year was that?
So we ran our first distillation on October 12th, 2017.
Okay.
Yep.
So October 12th, 5 years from the first batch, right?
Right. That's correct. Yeah. And to date, we have done I think we've done 6 different mash bills. We've done some, so we've done some bourbon whiskeys. We've done some rye whiskeys. We've done some 3 and 4 grain bourbon whiskeys. Most of our product is most of our bourbon is wheated. We have done some rye bourbons. But we've also done some other stuff that I'm not going to disclose right now, but be excited for that stuff.
I'm excited for it, but when you disclose it, come on here and disclose it for me.
Okay.
We would love to propagate your disclosure.
Yeah. We've done a couple different mash bills that you don't typically see come from Kentucky. So we're excited. It's neat, man. It's cool.
Well, yeah, we're friends with a lot of distillers, and you wouldn't be a small craft distillery if you weren't experimenting with those different mash bills and that different stuff, because there's so much flavor to pull out of a 5 grain whiskey or, there's so many different other grains, but you got to kind of balance that out. Like you said,
Sure. Well, and just even down to the types of barrels that we've used. We've used probably 5 or 6 different types of barrels on, some with different toast and char levels, just different style spiral cut barrels, just different styles of barrels, and it's really interesting to see the how different the distillate tastes going into one barrel compared to the other, just because one may be a spiral cut barrel and the other is a traditional domestic bourbon barrel.
It's just like that. If you toast that barrel and then you char it, or it's just like, it's all the difference in the world on the taste. And then my favorite is, I was talking to Alan Bishop, and he's like, I'm like, have you ever done a double oaked? And he's like, no, but I did, but it wasn't on purpose. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, the barrel there, I had 2 barrels of specific bourbon he was making, and they both were leaking, and he was sick and tired of fixing the barrel and trying to fix it and trying to stop it. So he just he put those 2 barrels into 2 new barrels. So that's technically double oaked. He knows what those barrels are, and he's just going to do a small batch, and it'll be double oaked. So
yeah, it's
you've done that before, right?
I'm a huge fan of toasting the barrels. It's just tasting, being able to fill those barrels and go and taste them, at different time periods. I'm a huge fan of toasted barrels, for sure.
Now, have you done where you did what is your char normally that you guys use at the distillery?
Normally we're on a char 3 and 4. Three or
I seem to remember you saying that when we were on the tour.
Yeah. So yeah, and it's like, I'm going to leave all the facts up to you tonight. I'm not going to try and just throw them out. So yeah, so have you done it where you've aged it in a 3 or 4, and then just straight up just a toasted barrel and finished it off in that yet?
No. So, but we do have some that have been filled that were we haven't dumped any barrels and finished in any other type of cask yet. But we do have a large amount that went into toasted and charred barrels for the duration. That's for the duration.
Yeah.
So most of your toasted product is it's finished in toasted barrels. Now I don't know of any distillery that has disclosed what toast level they are or anything like that, but you know, we have a lot of product that is still currently setting in, you know, we've got some 4 and 5 year old product that's been in toasted barrels from day one.
No char, even
No,
though
no, they're charred. Oh,
but
they're
toast
charred.
is considered char, right? Isn't that what? No.
No, so you've got different toast levels, just like you've got different char levels. You know, you've got light toasting, you've got heavy toasting, you've got medium plus, you know, there's different toast levels as well. But the barrels that we have used have been on a certain toast level and then on a certain char level. So they'll toast the barrel first and then they'll char it, you know.
Okay. You have to end up with a charred barrel for it to be bourbon.
No,
right?
Actually, if you toast, it is considered it char. Any kind of heating is considered it, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
And if I said no a few minutes ago, I want to back up and clarify. I'm glad you said that, because anytime you expose that barrel to heat, it's considered char.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. But the whole idea of the char for the distiller is there's a certain amount of impurities that are left in the distilling process, and the char after is going to basically be filtering some of those unwanted chemicals that are left in there.
Well, but the level of char that affects the sugars in the wood as well, right?
Yeah.
That's the bigger part of it is trying to intensify all those flavors in the barrel.
Activating it, basically.
Absolutely,
Yeah, caramelizing sugar is what there's that level of caramelized wood sugar that's right there that's going to go into, and then also the char.
Well, that's what helps bring out all those vanilla and caramel notes that you get, you know, is that the charring of the barrel.
Right. For sure.
I'll tell you what, I'm loving this 13 years.
What, you started already?
I did, yeah. You were busy talking, man. I got this great whiskey here. I'm going to drink it.
Yeah. So that the 12-year was fantastic. Let's see what's up with it.
It's odd that so a few minutes ago you had mentioned that you tasted had kind of got some of those banana notes on the 12, but on the 13, I seem to get more of those banana notes in the 13.
Yeah,
like banana and maybe some walnut or something. I know it's odd saying walnut.
Definitely, this is even more. Yeah,
but you get like a really fresh banana bread taste, you know. But it's
and this is more a banana bread. What I was tasting before was more of thinking of banana, just in like the dried fruit mode that
okay. That makes sense.
That's what the 12-year tasted to me when you first put it on the tongue. And like you say, as it rolls back, it sort of explodes into other flavors.
Sugar added banana chips or unsweetened banana chips?
I think just plain banana chips.
There you go.
Yeah, they're it was just odd that you said that about the 12, because that's the main thing that I get when with the Very Old St. Nick 13. It's, you know, a really rich bananas Foster, you know, with that caramel and stuff. But the yeast strand that was used in there gives you that really nice whole wheat bread flavor, you know, like it's like a fresh piece of toasted whole wheat bread.
This is like bananas Foster with bourbon glaze on top of it. So
yeah.
That adds that. There's no doubt about it. All right, so all the different brands that you have the Old St. Nick, you've got the Rare Perfection, it's the Cowboy Whiskey, correct?
We've got Cowboy, and then there's Cowboy Little Barrel, and then there's a Cowboy Little Barrel Rye. So the Cowboy and the Cowboy Little Barrel Rye, those are a blended whiskey.
Okay.
It's depending on which one. It's I think it's I don't know the actual percentage blends on it. I do know that the bourbon that is used is a 6 or 8 year old bourbon. We've also got the Waddy Boone and Sons label, which is probably one of my favorites, if not my favorite. We actually did a Rare Perfection release on a 12-year bourbon that was my favorite. And actually, a friend of mine actually called me last week. He was on vacation in Georgia, I think, and found a couple bottles at a retail outlet. And he picked a bottle up for me. So I've been trying to get my Venmo account set up so I can pay him for it. But I'm not tech savvy, as you noticed with me trying to get onto this podcast. But which was, that 12-year Rare Perfection bourbon release that we did was, man.
Don't cut yourself tech savvy short, man. You got on the podcast, so.
But yeah, it's So I also want to show some love to our Campion tequila line. We've got a tequila line. Let's see. We've done several Very Old St. Nick rye releases that are just phenomenal. One of them being the Harvest Rye, which is my favorite, the Cash Strength Harvest Rye.
We had some of the tequila when we were at your place, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was really good tequila.
And we had some of the rye. Yes.
Yeah. I think I pretty much went through our entire lineup with you guys, I believe.
No, 100%. It's just like we were sitting there and we were on that bus tour.
Yeah, we walked in and we kind of glided out.
Except you were.
Of course, you did a swan dive in, but
but Matt took over the tasting, and then he basically had pretty much everything laid out. And then I think you pulled a special bottle for us. I think it was one of them. And then, but we basically
the 15.96.
Yeah,
the Very Old St. Nick
15.96. Yeah, and that was exquisite.
No, that was a rye, correct?
But no, it was a bourbon.
Yeah. I'm here to tell you, I am loving this 13-year. This is awesome.
Now, what you said, the difference between the 12 and 13, I think the 12 has an aspect of the sweetness that's there, but the 13 is more drinking like a connoisseur that wants that pump. This has more kick in there, and it's not so much. There's a little bit more spice, a little bit more, that type of thing going on. But the sweetness is still that banana Foster aspect of it. So
sure. No, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And when you're they're both great, and
Yeah.
so that I don't typically use the term better or best ever,
right?
Because again, you're splitting hairs there when you're asking this or that, because there's certain things that I love about the 13, and there's certain things that I really love about the 12. And depending on the day or whatever meal you're having or whatever mood you're in, that's what's going to help dictate which one of those you want to enjoy at the end of the day. So same thing with like I mentioned a few minutes ago, our Waddy Boone is one of my favorites. And I've mentioned it to a couple of people, and I'm going to try to get with Marcy. And I really want to do some single barrel releases of that stuff, because we've got some of those barrels that are just out of this world. And it's an American whiskey, so it's a bourbon mash bill that was aged in used containers, reused containers. They were bourbon barrels to begin with. But man, that's great.
What you guys distilled?
No, it's not. It was a contract product, but.
Okay.
And we talked about it when you guys were there. So it's typically when a distillery puts product in a reused container, it's a hot barrel. So it's whatever spirit was in there was dumped. It's sent to another place. They refill it with their distillate and let it age. These barrels were actually broken down, all the old char removed, recouped, recharred, and then filled. So it was an experimental batch that they had done, and it's really phenomenal, man. It's something special. We've had a lot of folks come in and
when they removed the char, was there any process to try and reconstitute any product that was still in the charred portion?
I don't know the answer to that. I just know that this was like an experimental thing they were doing with removing that old char and recouping and so again, I wasn't there when they actually done that, so how much of that stuff they removed, I don't know. But again, we've had a lot of folks come in and they turn their nose up at it because they're bourbon snobs or whatever, and
Yeah.
They forget that you're still getting, you know, and I don't mean any offense or disrespect using that term, because I'm kind of a bourbon snob myself. I don't like anything in my bourbon but bourbon or ice.
Right,
you know,
exactly.
and, you know,
But I know what you're saying. I don't consider myself. I'm anything but a bourbon snob. I'm an anti-snob. I'm a blue collar, hand to mouth bourbon drinker.
I like to call him a bourbon ass.
Yeah, but you know, again, but that the Waddy Boone. So folks forget that they're getting a very good quality 8, 9, 10-year-old mature whiskey. You know, and it's you know, it's just one of those things that, again, kind of like we were talking about with the Rare Perfection. You just have to try it. You know, I really encourage people to come out and check our facility out. We really go the extra mile to make everybody feel like family. We try to roll the red carpet out for everybody. We try to go above and beyond. If we have some folks stop by and it's after hours and we're able to kind of show them around and you know, whatever it is to show the connoisseurs or the consumers that we're just happy to be a part of the industry. We want to show everybody that we're passionate about what we're doing, and it shows in our product, you know, and to not be so judgmental. And you know, one thing that I like to do with people is to taste everything blind. Let me give you a blind tasting, you know, and then you can turn your nose up at me if you're not happy with it at the end.
So we're coming down in June for the Bardstown barbecue. And
I'm actually cooking some food and stuff in that.
Okay,
nice.
So we're going to be there Thursday, but Thursday afternoon we're doing our first barrel pick over on Knob Creek. We have Sandy Freddie's mom, coming up. One of our 4 people, she's one of them.
I got you.
So that's the first Scotchy, and I'm splitting it with a bar. In Ohio, you have to have a bar represent you, and there's a place where we have our meetings and everything, and Carrie Sullivan owns the bar and has just been open to us. So we're going to split that pick. It's going to be the Scotchy Bourbon Boys bourbon barrel room select pick, but we're going to be down there for that. But I'm more than willing to come over on Friday morning and have you give me a blind taste test of all the different stuff. We'd come over there and do that. That would be awesome.
Hey,
no, you are cooking in that.
Are
you cooking Friday or Saturday?
I have to go look at my.
Either whatever day you're cooking,
maybe both.
Well,
either way, man. I can always chisel out a half hour with you.
But I will ask that in the blind tasting, you put that Bardstown, some of that Bardstown select in.
I got you. Yeah,
I wanted.
Yeah, I got you.
I would die to taste that.
Man. You know that particular release we did there was a blend of so we wound up with a few more bottles than most everybody else because we did a 3-barrel blend instead of a 2-barrel.
Okay.
And it was we did a 16.
That is your wheelhouse, 3 barrels, right? That's what you guys are used to doing.
Well, that's the max we can do. So we can do a lot of times we'll do 2 barrels, you know, just depending on the flavor profiles. But with that one there, we had, for one thing, the 3 barrels that we used were, it was a 16, a 14, and a 6-year-old product. So the 16 and the 14-year-old they had lost quite a bit to the Angel share, you know. But it was, I believe it was a 30% 16, a 30% 14, and a 40% 6-year. And those are percentages. And, you know, it just, man, it was just, the way it came together was just, you know, we kind of knew the flavor profile that we were looking for, but it just exceeded our expectations far beyond what we even thought that it was going to come out. So
that's awesome.
That was great.
Isn't it when you do something, you're trying to do something special, and then it just like all comes together?
Yeah, it's because you know, man, everything, it just seems, especially the last couple of years, it just seems like everything is such a struggle. And man, it was just such a blessing, and it was so enjoyable having something come together that way and just be that good. it was just one of those things that kind of just a reaffirmation of everything that we're doing here. This is what you work so hard for things like this, and it was something cool, man. And you know, luckily all the people that tried it were just completely blown away, and word spread quick. I mean, it was the first. So we released on a Thursday, and then I mean, by the next day, man, we had lines. There were more people there the next day than the first, just from word of mouth. So
because
it was great.
But I don't see, if anybody has been to your distillery and tasted like just what we tasted tonight. It's top of the line. Obviously, you guys know what you're doing when it comes to the blending and the taste of what your profiles and the whiskey that you have that you're using to get. It's a unique way of getting the distillery.
Sure.
From, you know, when you first start, you know, we're getting into 5 years. It's not like you're still fairly new. Your distillate isn't yet to the point what all the stuff that you're doing with the rare 14 and 15 years, and you got to get there. But how you're getting there, Marcy has this collection, and she's getting you there. But she's getting you there with this high kind of. You know what I mean? She's really understands, but it also comes down to picking barrels, mixing them together, and making them taste like this. And you definitely need a great team, and that great team, and you guys obviously have it. So it didn't surprise me that you produce a 3-barrel batch and had whatever that tasted fantastic.
Sure. Have you guys seen it? Have y'all seen the bottle or anything?
I just saw what I saw online. I saw the bottle. Let me grab it.
Let me grab it real quick.
Just gonna grab it.
All right.
Yeah, that was those 3 bourbons were spectacular. I'm actually. Are you feeling it? I
am feeling.
Obviously, we're dealing with a little bit. We haven't gone over the proofs, but the proofs are obviously a little bit higher than usual.
Right? We're used to drinking. Exactly.
Yeah.
So this was the packaging that it came in, and it was, I'm super proud of this bottle. It was just really neat. It was a lot of fun working with those guys on this stuff. So
yep.
So here's what.
Look at that.
But man, I wish I had a better camera. But
no, all five of the distilleries had the same bottle. And each one has their name on it, but you got, I really feel, I was looking at all the bottles, but your Longhorn Preservation kind of logo kind of stands out. It's a really, as far as coolness, you have a damn good cool.
Well, what I enjoyed the most about that, and what I caught myself staring at the most, and was just the most intrigued by, was when there was a photo of all 5 bottles sitting up there, the color differences in all 5 bottles. I mean, it was, it was just something about it that just struck me as, when you look at all of them, it's, that it's all a bourbon in those bottles, but just how the blatant difference in all of them is, it was just right there. And it was, I didn't hear one single person say anything about the differences in the colors, and it was just, that's what I caught myself looking at. And that's what intrigued me the most about it was, that this showcases how different every distillery is, but on the inside, we're all the same. It's all the same, right. But it's, it was just, I don't know, man, it was cool. It was something neat to be a part of, especially for me being young and being new to the industry. It was just, this was one of the milestones of my career for sure.
I agree. Each distillery has a different concept of the flavor they're trying to achieve, but you can achieve it all through different ways and, different processes, and, and that's what I think that whole collection, that Bardstown collection, was completely showcasing.
Yeah, I agree.
There's no doubt about it.
Yep.
All right. You got it. Anything else to add? Okay. So when you guys start producing your bourbon there, what is the name of it going to be? Do you guys figure out what it
so
should
our
actually be?
our house bourbon will be Preservation. But again, we've done a couple different mash bills. So we'll have a couple different labels. We haven't fully decided on what each one will be, but we do know that our house bourbon will be Preservation. And again, most of our bourbon is a wheated bourbon. We've done some 4-grain bourbons. We've done 2 other mash bills that I'm super stoked about. They're not bourbons, I will say that.
Okay.
But we've got some straight rye whiskey that will be ready to go in glass. I hope in the fall. We thought about maybe doing some this last winter, but with things the way they went, having trouble getting glass and just different things in the supply chain, we decided that we would hold off a little bit. So,
When will we see Preservation bourbon?
That's
Not known yet.
probably, so traditionally the industry standard was 6 to 8 years on a good quality bourbon,
Right.
So I would say that it's going to be at least another 2 years,
Okay.
But I will say that, it's funny that I just went and actually pulled a couple samples probably, I think it was last week, and it's going to be something special for sure. So
I can only imagine because we were down at Dayton Barrel Works, and he's Bill Hockett, who used to be up by Gervasi, which is right around the corner from me here where I live in Canton, Ohio. I met him as he was leaving. So he went down there, started that up, and we got to taste some of his wheated bourbon. And I think it was 9 and 14 month. And already there was the young aspect of it, but the sweetness that he was pulling out of it, you can get out of that. And you guys are down in Kentucky aging down there. And I just can only imagine what you're tasting already. So, yeah,
it's like I said, we're excited, man. It's again, kind of like with the Bardstown collection release, it has exceeded our expectations for sure, and again, we're just really proud to be part of the industry, and we're just wanting to make a lot of people proud and to do the best we can. And, I tell a lot of folks a lot of the times is, I don't ever want to hear somebody say that, yeah, I've had that product and it's good, but it ain't worth what, X amount of dollars for the bottle. I always want to hear people think, I would like to think that I hear them say that, man, they could be getting more for that, so we'll see, we'll see. Of course, I'm partial, I'm biased, but, we've got a great team. We've got a great team there. And, if people only realized how much work we put into that, and realistically that we're not doing this stuff for ourselves, we really legitimately want people to love our product. And, it's coming together.
What you're putting out as far as the blends kind of tells everybody what you're going to, when it comes to your bourbon and when it comes to your ryes, it's still the same taste team. And I really believe that your taste team at any distillery is very important, because it's like, that's the people you as a master or a head distiller can produce a shit ton of really good whiskey. But if the taste team isn't good, or doesn't care, or really doesn't, just say you're at a distillery and they don't even, they're not really into it or whatever, it's going to show.
Well, you just have to be honest. You have to be honest with each other, and that's, I would much rather you say something and hurt my feelings there that day than to just let something slide and us put out a product where people aren't like, man, that's subpar,
Right.
It's, you know, and you know, that's the good thing about us being small and working so closely with each other is, you know, it would not hurt my feelings one single bit to say something to one of those guys, be like, well, I don't think I'd have done that, you know, but you know, so far we haven't had, I mean, again, you know, everything has came together just as well as we would hoped it would. And, you know, of course, like the old saying goes, you'll never please everybody, but you know what? We're damn sure trying, you know.
No, you can't. There's no policing everybody. It's just like one hand, you'll have someone telling you, oh, thank you for doing this. And another person, you're podcasting, and it's just like, it's like, you suck.
Yeah, I get it, man.
It's like, what are you talking about? It's like, wait a second. It's just like, I'm just telling people what I like.
But you know, you're exactly right. And man, people get so up in arms about this stuff. But again, this is like, you know, this is like arguing why the color blue is so much prettier than the color red. You know, I mean, this is solely a personal opinion because everybody's tastes are so different. You know, and I get asked a lot. The question I get asked more than anything is, well, what's the best bourbon on the market? And it's like, man, whichever one you're buying is the best. You know,
got it.
No,
That's
exactly.
right.
Because
you know,
some people like fish and some people like steak. Some people like both. But
Yeah.
overall, it's your taste, and it only matters. I always tell somebody, just because I like something, they come up with you really like that. He goes, and then the one guy's like, well, I didn't think it was that good. And I'm like, I get that. It's like, and we don't taste exactly. Find something that's that good. I love bourbons. I'm not, but ryes, I have to work my ass off to find ryes that I like.
You know, and even the difference in our own taste buds, and we kind of started to mature at the same time in the bourbon world here. We have very different palates, and what Tiny likes, you know, I may not favor quite as much. What I like, I'm really a fan of the ryes, and that just doesn't spin his windmill at all.
Well,
yeah, I mean, it's
with some exceptions.
Well, there are some exceptions, and I tasted your rye there, and I thought it was a good rye. You know, there's a certain rye I don't like. It's got dill and celery
and like fresh cut grass. It's like
and
going out there and showing on a handful of
all I want to do is spit it out.
Fresh cut grass that has been scraped off of the underside of the lawnmower.
It's like going out there and grabbing a handful of lawn clippings with dill in it, and it's not good.
Right.
Exactly.
Some people like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not knocking anybody. I encourage everybody.
I like dill pickles. I'll eat them all day long. But I
don't want a dill pickle whiskey.
You can go into a restaurant and get a really thick porterhouse or filet mignon, and some restaurants can mess that up.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's as impossible as that is. It can be messed up. So it can vary from whoever's.
Sure.
You know?
Well, you know, the thing about rye is I find that most folks they're turned off by rye because they don't have the complexity of a bourbon. You know, most ryes are kind of a one note. It's just really hot and spicy. You know, but when you find those ryes, and I was that way for the longest time. I just wasn't a rye fan because they were just one note. It was just nothing but super spice and bitter. You know, it just wasn't good. You know, but we done a release of a cask strength harvest rye, and I mean it just, the minute that we opened the barrel up and the smell that came out of it,
you nailed it.
I mean, my mouth immediately started to water, you know, and I just couldn't wait to taste it, you know, and man, that was our first release of rye that we ever did, and you know, that's my go-to to this day when it's a rye whiskey and we have folks come in, they're like, I don't really like rye. Well, it's because you've never had a good one, and,
right?
You know,
but so there's most of it's the 95.5 MGP that I don't like. Like, I can't stand Bullet Rye, and then I've had Heaven's Door Rye where it was the worst thing I've ever tasted. I don't even want to repeat what I said on the podcast, but I like I like the Heaven's Door Tennessee
Why
bourbon.
wouldn't you? You've only repeated it 20 times.
Well, okay, it tasted like old man's urine. And some people ask how I know that because I'm
we don't want to go there,
and I've smelled it.
We don't need to go there.
Yeah, well, you asked, but that's how bad it was to me. Okay, but I said on the podcast, I'm not a fan of rye. Some people can like that. If you like drinking,
But Matt, what you said,
it's fine.
So much of what you said is exactly right. I guess a better analogy than the steak is the preparation of wild game. My wife didn't like venison till she had venison that I killed and prepared myself. From the point of I'm putting the slug into the deer to quartering it and butchering it, and then taking it out and preparing it to put on the grill and whatnot. It's all how you do it and knowing how to do it. And there's a lot of ways to do venison wrong, and there's only one way to do it right. And if you do it right, it's going to have a milder taste than a lot of beef roast you're going to eat. You're not going to have any game taste whatsoever. And I got to believe, I know nothing about being a distiller, but I got to believe something like rye, there's probably 100 ways to do it wrong and precisely one way to do it right.
But it also comes out like when all I'm going to say is the same exact 95.5 I've been tasting down at another distiller straight out of the barrel with him, and it tastes fantastic. So those barrels that he has aren't like the other barrels because barrels make all the difference, right? And
and again, it's all about where that barrel, the environment that it's aged in, down to how long they let it age. I mean, all that stuff comes into play. But again, it's even what like you said about when you were using the venison analogy, and there's 99 ways to do it wrong and one way to do it right. But even those 99 wrong ways, you're still going to find people out there that like it. I mean, it's I'm not a big fan of goat, but I love mutton. Not a big fan of, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So
you made me think of something. I was going to ask this question a little bit ago, so I apologize for being slow on the draw. And you were talking about the barrels and whatnot. Have you ever had, like, in your mind, you have this conception of this mash bill, and we're going to do this run, and you get it to where you're sampling it, and you get to where you're not spitting it out anymore. The heads are gone, and you're getting some really good white dog, and it's just good. But there's something about it that all of a sudden in your mind, it's like, do I want to go with what I had thought in my mind for this barrel char, or is what I'm tasting telling me I need to do a different barrel char?
No, once I've got my plan and once I've got my mind made up, what distillate's coming off that still, that's what's going in that barrel.
Okay.
Because that's what it's supposed to be like. That's, for whatever reason, we had talked about it when you guys were there last, there's so many variables that go into how that distillate is going to taste that day, and to me, that, again, that's something that's what makes it interesting. That's what keeps it interesting to me is, let's see how this comes out, and I had I'm not going to mention any names, but I had a guy tell me when we done a soft opening, we had several master distillers there, and I had the pleasure of sitting and talking with a couple of them, and he said there's two kinds of whiskeys. There's good whiskey and there's shit. He said, but the barrel's only going to make it better. So whatever's coming off the still, that's what's going in our barrels.
Right, 100%.
Good answer.
Now, the one thing that I know, like if I'm tasting, even on Zoom, if I'm tasting with the head distiller, or if I'm in person, so the night that it always seems like there's that experience that will make your palate a little bit more excitable and that type of thing because you're in that good mood. Like tonight with us tasting this, Everything tasted delicious. I'm not saying it wasn't, but we're here with you and we're tasting with you. And that's a really good, memorable experience for us.
Sure.
But the same thing, were you tasting all the different bourbons the night that they introduced the Bardstown collection? Were you tasting that with all the different distillers? Were you actually?
Yes, I have, but I've also went back to them and tasted them as well.
Now, were they better that night? And then now that you go back, you can be a little bit, you're tasting into whatever. Did that night taste better?
There's a couple that have actually been better than that night, there were a couple I tasted that night there was not one single one of those that were not, there was nothing that was off-putting about them. Every one of them were pleasant. They were all enjoyable. But there's actually one in particular that I went back to, and it has gotten better, and it's one of those things that, I have found that I'll sometimes buy a label or I'll buy a bottle and I'll open it, and it may not be something that I think is the best, but I may come back to it a month later or a couple weeks later and try it, and it's completely different, and I'm blown away by it.
We're talking neck pour here.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean it's again it's.
Now, just remember. So I've analyzed this as a podcaster, what the neck pour is, and there's people who will tell you you're full of shit. The neck pour's a full of shit thing, but as you know, there's a certain amount of that air that sits on top of that where whatever's left, some of those, what would you say, let's say there's a little bit of the heads in there, those little kind of flavors, and they come out and they just sit in the air, and they're sitting on this, they get delivered, they sit on the shelf for a while, then they sit on the customer's shelf for a while, and they're just sitting on that release of those, alcohols into that air, but they sit right on top of that.
It's that little bit of oxidization that you get.
Right. So, but it's oxidizing with that alcohol. Now, everybody says pour it in, let it sit for 10 minutes. But I've come up with, when you're gonna, like, if I'm gonna do something and I have a new bottle, like I'm doing a tasting, I'm gonna open it the day before. I'm going to let it sit for 10 minutes with that cork off. I'm going to put the cork back on. But when I go in that night, let's just say to do the tasting, I start pouring, pop the cork, let it air for 5 minutes. And then what I do is put the cork back on and I flip the bottle just to mix up whatever air is the good air with what's going on. So that surface bourbon isn't there. And I've seen that's kind of how I've got rid of that neck pour. But like you said, you got rid of the neck pour, now there's fresh air, and then you visit it a month later, that's still you know what I mean? It hasn't been sitting.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff has been released that's going to be released, and it's just so much better. I mean, you can let it sit for 8 months. I've had, the first time I ever experienced that was with Larceny, and Larceny was hot, and it was just the regular Larceny, 92 proof, and I didn't like it.
Try it with Bullet.
What?
Try it with Bullet.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be honest, a fresh cracked bottle of Bullet, I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
But you open it, you get a healthy pour out of it, and you stick it back on your shelf, and you let it sit for a couple weeks, and you come back to it. I think it's one of the best bourbons that you can drink.
I mean, I agree with that oxidation that happens.
But you know what? It's just like anything else. Just like when you go fishing, there's a million different ways that every person out here goes and fishes, or whatever hobby you have. But you know what? When you're doing something that makes you more confident, or something that you enjoy, that you're going to enjoy that way better. So as far as the neck pour goes, I've never heard of that. To me, to be honest with you, I'm not going to go the night before and open the bottle and go through the process that you went through. But you know what? I encourage you to do that every time, because that makes your experience that much more enjoyable. So if that's what you're doing with my product and you're enjoying it, please do it every time.
I've been opening stuff when I buy it now. And
Sure.
I might not get to it for a month, but I just open it right away.
And sometimes
let
when he
that out.
opens it, he tips it behind his back and then switches this hand and puts it on the shelf with his opposite hand.
But
And that really adds to the
But
flavor.
what really, where it really screws me is that Christmas time, because I get so much bourbon shipped in from different distilleries and everything to try. And
Sure.
usually at Christmas time, I've already gone through and I've got probably about 10 bottles or whatever. I'm like, oh, that's a good present for him. And it's like, if you open them all, there's no, you
But you know,
give somebody
again,
a present with the bottle open.
you have a tradition and you have a ritual that makes it enjoyable to you. And that's also, you know, we've got that to thank for this bourbon boom now, because I think that's really what started it is, you know, all these guys and these you know, women and gentlemen that, ladies and gentlemen that have seen their granddads and their dads that would get together with their friends and have bourbon and cigars and just left an impression on them. You know, all that stuff's coming back around, but you know, our population is so much bigger than it was then. So it's really what's driving this bourbon boom, and people are making it's more of a ritual and a tradition to them, and you know, it's important to them. It's you know, they really, you know, that's the highlight of their week is getting together with a couple of their friends and, you know, having a couple really good cigars and having a really good bourbon and something that they can talk about. And that's, you know, you got guys that are people that are friends with each other, but have not a lot in common. They work in completely different fields. They have different interests, but they have that one common interest of bourbon and cigars. And that's the most important thing to them. You know,
I really think that politicians should be sharing bourbon together, because bourbon basically it completely will make people forget about their politics and treat people the way they are. You know,
I think there's a whole lot of problems that could be solved if people would just slow down and have a drink and talk it out instead of hating one another right off the beginning. You know, and
bourbon equals, like I always say at the end of every podcast, it equals good times and good friends.
You know, I think absolutely, and I think that people in general have a lot more in common than what they realize. You know, no matter what you believe in, no matter what you stand for, you know, you're still steadfast in your beliefs, the same that I'm in mine. So we have that in common right there. You know, and I just think that it's something special when you can hash out a problem or you can come together over something. You know, the one thing that you're going to remember is having it over that drink, and you know, just it's we're trying to capture that uniqueness and that experience in a bottle.
Yeah.
You know, and it's one of those things that you always strive to do is to be the best that you can be at whatever you're doing.
Right, and just once again, everybody as an individual has all different thoughts and all different experiences.
Sure.
But when you're sharing, sitting down with having a whiskey and relaxing, all the world's problems kind of will go away, and then it's just you and them and just having a good time. And that's really what life is about. It's like just to make sure you don't waste your time being stressed out and worrying about shit that you have pretty much no control over.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
just basically relaxing and enjoying life. And that's what whiskey is about, you know, overall. And that's one thing that people are understanding, you know, in this. Young people, medium age and older people all kind of are coming together with that. We just have to make sure that in the end, it doesn't go overboard where all of a sudden we have lots of people just laying in the streets drunk. You know what I mean? Like before Prohibition. You know what I mean?
Sure.
This government needs the taxation on the whiskey to keep surviving.
We just want everybody's glass to be filled with preservation product is all. That's what we're striving for. Or
at least enough glasses that you don't have any extra.
Yeah, there you go.
Sell everything you got.
Sure.
All right, man. So is there anything else, any other thing that you want to promote or anything coming up or whatever?
Well, again, I feel like that we're going to have some product that was distilled at our facility that'll be going into glass this year. So keep a lookout for that and later in 2022. And you know, I feel like the rest of this year is going to bring a lot of new things for preservation. A lot of new products that we're going to work on. So just keep your eye out for us. And I encourage anybody that if you're in driving distance or if you find yourself in Bardstown, to please come check us out. And, you know, we'd be more than happy to roll the red carpet out for you. And we're completely transparent. You know, we'll show.
They will do that, exactly that. They will roll out the red carpet for you.
We'll show everybody every part of our process. And, you know, we just want people to know that we're legit and we're really proud of what we're doing. And, you know, we're just excited to share it with everybody.
Yeah, you got a wonderful distillery there. Spectacular location. The whole experience is definitely Kentucky, but it's on that craft distillery, you know, feel when you go there. You really get the, you know, usually with craft distillers, you get the red carpet treatment, and you guys didn't disappoint. There was that, you know, when we were on that tour, we knew how much time we had. We probably spent another 45 minutes there. It wasn't a big deal. Everything was just perfect. And you gave us really a great experience. And I look forward to coming down and seeing you again and going forward in the future and getting to see what, you know, now that you're starting to put stuff into the bottle and what you got, you know, that's just exciting.
Sure. No, I was glad to have you guys out, man. This is one of my favorite parts about my job is just meeting all the different folks and seeing how excited people are about bourbon and being able to share that excitement with them that's a highlight of the job, man. It's fun.
It was a lot of fun tonight.
Yeah. No, thank you guys, man.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
All right. So we're going to have little Steve-O take us out. Just make sure you visit littlestevo.com. He's the one singing our cover song. www.littlestevo.com.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Good night.
Oh, show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why.
Hey, thank you guys.
Don't ask why. Show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. For if we don't find the next whiskey bar, I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die.
All right.
Let
me get this ready to go. We still are on YouTube a little bit. If you wanna, what were you pouring right there?
That's William Dalton from Alan Bishop.
Nice.
So that's one of my favorite. Now, so have did you get to taste the William Dalton where he dropped the French staves in? He got. Is that the one that's from the Alchemist does it say the Alchemist?
No.
Okay. That's just the William Dalton, which is delicious.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what he did, hold on. Let me just make sure. I want to make sure I get this published.
So we just recently, that was just recently introduced in our area, probably 2 months ago.
It's not it's not introduced in our area. So, all right. We've been down there a couple times and podcasted, right? Like you know, did what we did when we were on the tour.
Sure.
Save. All right, so it's building that. Yeah, but Alan is just, you know, he gets distilling, just like, you know.
Man, that guy caught my attention when he was doing that absinthe and
in Florida.
Watching
Death
that,
in the afternoon.
I was blown away by that, and I started following him, and you know he's a very interesting guy. you know, and
That he is.
We got to do.
Yeah,
we got
he's a
to go
great
down
guy.
and
I've
we're-
never met him personally, but I,
oh,
you know,
you're
he's,
gonna.
yeah.
He, you know, that day we were there, he was supposed to be on the bus
Yeah,
tour.
you know,
Actually,
man,
Joe Lee-
that was one, that's what I told one of the other guys there. I was just really excited to meet him, you know, and not that I wasn't excited to meet you guys. It was just, man,
No, I get
watching him do that stuff and with that absinthe and because I've always been interested in that and that particular distilled spirit. It's something about that kind of forbidden fruit thing. I don't know how to explain it. It's
Oh, we're huge fans of absinthe.
Yeah, that Wormwood distilling with all those what would you say, botanicals that they put in.
Botanicals.
Yeah.
So
And
Well,
Thujon
and
is
watching it-
not a tetrahydrocannabinol, but it is a toxin.
the color, just seeing the colors that were produced, you know, is just it just draws you to it. It's something that's intriguing, and you know, so
yeah. So that particular recipe they had pulled, and then I was talking about Bill Hockett at Dayton Barrel Works. It was him and Alan that did that.
Sure.
That came up with that batch.
sure.
But we went down with Alan last November because he's shooting Bo Cumberland's shooting a documentary. So we were invited to his farm and had a whole afternoon of distilling out of his back creek.
Sure. I think
So that was fun.
yeah.
So
That's
when
awesome, man.
he had some distillate that we redistilled, but then he had a gin basket and let us all. Actually, I was able on the second run be able to pick out what we were putting into the gin basket for that second run.
And I was grinding.
Yeah.
Well,
We ground mash, and he started a new fermentation right there in the backwoods of his property. It was pretty.
Sure. That may be something that you guys look out for us, is because I actually I reached out to Alan probably last month, and something that I'd looked into doing, and I've been thinking about it for a couple of years now. Is I'm going to try to see about doing an Appalachian gin with like all local botanicals with honeysuckle and blackberry and cherry blossom, all stuff that's native to this area here, and so that might be something interesting that'll come around.
That sounds really interesting. Now, would you still have juniper in it, or would you abandon
Yeah,
that?
you've got certain botanicals that you have to have for it to be called a gin, you know, but the main botanicals would be stuff that is more native to here, you know, maybe some pine or you know, pine needles with some honeysuckle with some blackberry and kind of some wild cherry blossom, or you know, something like that, you know.
That sounds like an interesting gin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see what comes about, and you know, I've still got to do a lot of homework on it, and you know, go from there. But
That's one thing great about the art of distilling. Just keep researching the history of all the different things that people have done, because there's a shit ton that's just been buried.
absolutely, yeah.
That people were doing, and then prohibition or whatever, and nobody's ever brought it back. But almost anything you can distill has been distilled over the last, you know,
Sure,
300,
sure.
350 years.
Yep, I agree.
There's no doubt. I mean, even what was that? All right, we're not doing that, so I don't have to actually hear you on that. Even the what was it? The early settlers and how they fermented, it was completely different. They did natural fermentation.
Right, with wild yeast strains, yeah.
Right. And so it would they sometimes let it sit 4 or 5 months before it was ready to go.
Yeah, depending on the weather and time of the year, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that's what he was saying. So it's like the guy that I was talking to you about, his normal distillation for yeast strains natural is 30 days.
Yeah.
I'm just like, not, you know, he's like, I never heard of turbo yeast. I understand, but you know, the normal fermentation at distilleries, is what, 72
Three.
hours.
3 to 5 days. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. So,
yeah.
but all the yeast that is used by modern day distilleries, it started off as a wild yeast at one point in time.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
So,
I mean, Fleshman's vodka, it's Fleshman's yeast company.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
Number one, well, it's the number one producer of bread yeast in the world, I believe, Fleshman's,
Yep.
So,
yeah, they were one and the same.
yeah, and started off making vodka, and actually was a potato-based vodka with bread yeast,
Yep.
So there you go.
Right.
Well, look at Firm Solutions, Pat Heist. I mean, what they did.
One of my most favorite human beings on this planet. Yeah, that guy's another one that, man, you can just sit and have conversations with him for hours. He's I don't know if that guy would ever run out of knowledge. I don't know, I don't know if he would ever, I don't know if he would be able to talk about a subject that he's not well versed in. It's just,
whoever thought he'd be well versed in White Claw.
Yeah.
But he is.
Kombucha, the guy knows about kombucha. I mean, just anything and everything. I mean, the guy is just, I don't know, man, he's an interesting guy. And then on top of that, he's a metalhead, plays in a band, so it's just that the guy's got experience in just about everything, seems like. So
I can't wait till his band plays at Log Stills Amphitheater.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
That'd be a good partnership right there,
yeah,
right?
For sure. Yeah.
So anyways, thank you for your time. Great to talk to
you guys.
Thanks so much.
You guys. Thank you all.
You're welcome. My God, we know that, and I've said this before, we know that in your position, you're probably not in an evening sitting around twiddling your thumbs saying, gee, what am I going to do tonight? And the fact that you've taken time to share with us, we to say we appreciate it is an understatement. It's
no,
awesome.
I enjoyed it. Thank you guys very much. I really did. I was outside cleaning blackberry bushes out earlier, so kind of lost track of time. So.
Well, you didn't. Well, I mean, you said you had it. I knew it, and that we weren't that late. We've been later before, and actually, he was later, so it was perfect.
Well, that I didn't for some reason I came in and I couldn't get my damn laptop lined out where my computer where I could get on it. It was, I don't know, it was doing all kinds of funny stuff, and then I had to go down and look at my password that was on our router, and I wound up unplugging it, and it took forever to boot back up, but. Anyway, we made it, guys. I enjoyed it, and I appreciate you guys showing love, and just hope you guys know that I appreciate everything, even on a personal level. I appreciate everything that you guys are doing to support our product and to support me, and it doesn't go unnoticed for sure.
Well, we can't wait to come back down and see you again, Matt.
Yeah, for sure.
No, hell, man, I'm glad you guys came, man. Y'all are good people, man.
Just from an honest perspective, it's delicious. I mean, you know what? If I find a distillery that isn't, where it might not be the greatest, it needs more time, or it does all this kind of stuff or whatever, I just kind of back off and wait. But there's no backing off and waiting here. I mean, you're producer. You guys are doing
there.
It.
This is
you can't rush it for sure. We only get to leave this first impression on you one time, so we want it to be the best that we can possibly give. So, we're just as excited, more so than most folks. So, again, we're doing it for you guys. We're doing it for you all to enjoy it. And
let me tell you, your enthusiasm is contagious. It really is.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Keep doing the grind, man.
We're gonna try it.
All right.
Hey, fellas.
All right, good night, Matt.
Better get finished up. My wife's gonna strike me if I don't get done here.
All right. There you go. All right.
Have a good one, guys.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Dant Crossing, Gethsemane, Kentucky. Timeless hospitality that stirs the spirit. Dant Crossing is a one-of-a-kind destination for unforgettable weddings, memorable corporate events, day trips, and weekend getaways. The pastoral campus is anchored by Log Still Distillery and includes an amphitheater that seats 2,000, a 12-acre lake for fishing and unique lodging options, creating an immersive experience that's rooted in the community and culture of our little slice of Kentucky. More attractions will open soon at Dant Crossing, including our 21,000 square foot distillery, which we will have the ability to produce 15,000 barrels of spirit each year, a network of wooded walking trails, fully functional private train depot, farm-to-table restaurant, and the Legacy, a premier wedding and events venue. Whether you're looking to host an event, book a stay, or reserve a tasting, we're ready to welcome you. Learn more at dantcrossing.com.